when we look at successful small businesses, we see that they have a very involved founder who has hired a very smart jack of all trades operations person who has a very strong fundamental marketing sense. They aren't necessarily the marketing director, but they understand finance, they understand social, they understand e-commerce, and they can tie all of these things together. So I think that the first thing that you should consider if you're a founder is to find that right-hand person, to have someone who can almost act as a soundboard, who can solve problems differently than you, and who can come up with unique ways of doing things and approach things differently than how you approach things. Once you get that, then you can kind of develop the team around. I think it's always important to find smart young people. They don't need to have a ton of experience, but they need to know social. They need to kind of understand things. We always talk about at Cobble Hill, people who get it and people who don't. And you either get it or you don't, you know? And if you don't get it right now, you don't get it, right? Like, there are people that just get it. Welcome back to The Marketing Factor. Excited to have you here for a very special episode. I've been getting a lot of questions in my DMs from various people, and I figured I'd take some time to kind of go through those questions and answer them. Just being a business owner and being in the marketing industry, I come across a lot of different types of businesses, and everyone has very unique questions that they're always kind of interested in my perspective in. And I think that kind of the great thing about being in the service industry is that you do meet so many different types of people. And so you're able to kind of get a pretty broad perspective of what the business landscape looks like. And that's pretty much what excites me about marketing in general, is the fact that every day is different, every client is different, every solution is different. And it makes it exciting for me as someone who really doesn't like to sit still or has a hard time focusing sometimes, that I'm able to kind of glean a little perspective on it. And so there's a few questions that I just thought I'd rattle through, and hopefully, you know, these are relevant to you. And that's kind of my goal with this episode. So the first question that I've been getting a lot is, what is one seismic shift you're seeing in the marketing industry right now? And how do you see it playing out over the next 5 years? So for me, we started Cobble Hill 13 years ago, and the industry and landscape of marketing and businesses in general have changed, you know, pretty dramatically. Social media was pretty new then. Now every brand has social media. Websites were still kind of not mobile responsive. And so a lot of the work that we were doing when we first started was bringing websites kind of up to speed and up to just generally what needs to happen for modern standards for the modern web. Over the past 5 years, and since COVID, really, we've seen everyone kind of flood the space of digital marketing and email marketing. And now there's every brand, especially direct-to-consumer brands, are running ads. So it's much more competitive to run ads on Facebook and Google and TikTok and Pinterest and all the platforms that we run ads on. And every brand sends email marketing at a pretty high cadence. And I think one thing that is, you know, the biggest shift there is they all look the same. All the ads feel the same. All of the emails feel the same. It's very hard to stand out because it's almost like this type of advertising is ubiquitous, and it just feels very easy to glaze over a lot of these ads. And so I think that the biggest kind of shift that is going to happen over the next 5 years or even over the next year, is that the onus of the actual advertising and storytelling aspect comes back to the essence of what the brand is about. And I think that it plays out into a variety of different ways. So from a storytelling piece, you have to have an authentic story. I look at brands that I've always admired, like Patagonia, and anything that is out there that I feel really resonates with me. And what stands the test of time is their ability to capture stories. And I think that storytelling in general is the most powerful aspect of advertising. And I think that it's very easy for a brand to come up with a great looking website, a great looking ad, they might even have a great product, and they can even maybe fabricate a little bit of a story there, but you can tell if it's inauthentic and it's not true and it's not coming from a place that feels real. And I think even more now that AI has kind of entered the landscape of advertising, everything truly feels just like ubiquitous and very easy to generate content. And the thing that's going to stick with humans the most is that true kind of like real feeling that you get when you see something that inspires you. And I know I get that way when I see a great surf film or a great movie, listen to a great record that is created by humans. If I go to a concert, if I see live jazz and see improvisation happen in the moment, I'm much more moved from that than if I see something that's totally just kind of created in a way that's much more kind of fabricated and put together in something that seems like anyone could do it. So I think uniqueness in a brand is probably like the one thing that you'll see that will help advertising change out. How does that relate to, your brand or your company's story is really for you to determine, but you need to have a sense of purpose and a sense of why and a sense of like, it has to be more than just the look and feel of something. There has to be something that resonates with the customer. Next question, from a digital marketing perspective, how much money should I invest in digital marketing? I think that question is one that I get asked a lot, and it's one that I don't have necessarily a great answer for. I think that there are a variety of different factors. Of course, a lot of people have budget constraints, so they can only spend a certain amount of money. They also don't know what their return on ad spend is even going to be if they've never run ads before. A lot of times, if it's a new product that's coming to market, it's very hard to spend kind of a minimal amount of money on ads and expect a great return. You're trying to do a lot of things. You're trying to create brand awareness pretty early on so people know about it. You need to have proof of concept. So you need to have people talking about your product. You need to have the fact that it's a real product, that it's something that people want. I think that it's really hard to just put money into something and expect that you're going to get a return. You need to have a pretty healthy asset library of ads that you're going to run, a pretty decent ability to kind of create new ads. You're also going to just need to have a way that you can kind of determine and make decisions quickly based on your return. And so I think that you need to have as much runway as you could possibly afford when you're starting a brand to test a variety of different ad concepts. I think that it's very hard these days to start a brand with a very minimal amount of ad spend. In fact, I say for brands that are just starting out to invest their money in other places like PR, a really good PR agency, influencer content, working with other brands kind of, or even just running the ads themselves in the background to have a way to kind of monitor and see how things are going before they invest anything with an agency. For a brand that's already spending a little bit of money, they've seen return on investment, we say that, okay, let's try to determine what your margin is going to be and try to capitalize on spending as much money to acquire new customers as we possibly can. For them, if they're spending $10,000 a month and they're generating a 300% return on that, where are there opportunities to scale that budget? So we like to incrementally increase the budget, throughout the first few months to see if we can scale and it still kind of maintains your total gross revenue growing up too. So there really isn't a straight answer, but I kind of encourage new businesses not to invest too heavily into digital advertising unless they are also investing in other channels as well. Next question. What should the balance be between your ad spend and your total revenue? What does that ratio look like? I think for a healthy business, we see that your ad spend as a percentage of your total revenue is somewhere between 5 and 20%. And so it's a pretty big range, but it's something that when we work at Cobble Hill, the first thing that we kind of determine is your marketing efficiency ratio. So what are you spending on advertising, service fees, everything like that? And what is that as a percentage of your total gross revenue? So gross doesn't take into account your returns or anything like that. We want to make sure that everything that we're attributing back is going towards more of a top line. From that, we see, 5% to me seems like you could still be spending a little bit more money to generate new customer revenue. So if you're at 5%, you're pretty healthy, but you also have room to grow. At 20%, you're kind of topping that where you're at pretty high growth phase, but you're also paying a lot to acquire a customer. I think a lot of it depends on, what your margins are on your product. If you have very slim margins, paying 20% of your total gross is probably not going to be profitable for the business. So you want to look at maybe a lower ratio of ad spend. But I think that if you are a high margin business, paying 20% to acquire a customer, especially if you have a high return customer rate and you have a high lifetime value of a customer, then you're should be much more willing to spend a little bit more to acquire a customer. We work with a lot of luxury brands who have very high average order values. And as you can probably imagine, it's more expensive to acquire those customers. So the things that we put in place there are, let's go after new customer revenue as much as possible and not waste a ton of money on remarketing if we don't have to. And let our email marketing kind of do the component of remarketing where we can just focus all of the ad spend on new customer revenue with a small percentage of it going towards remarketing and retargeting past customers. Next question. How many emails should I be sending every month if I have a list of 20,000 people? I think that depends a lot on the type of product that you have, the seasonality of the product, quite frankly, what you have to talk about. So we generally think that if you have a 20,000 person email list, it's still pretty low from a direct to consumer standpoint, but it's growing. We think that you can be sending, as long as you're segmenting your subscribers, we think that you could be sending at least 1 to 2 a week with maybe 1 to 3 SMS messages a month. Right now, I feel like that's kind of the appropriate amount. As we get closer to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the cadence of emails really kind of ramps up. And what we propose is that we want to be kind of the first in the inbox when the holiday season rolls around, because of the fact that every other brand is doing it and you're going to lose wallet share if you're not there when people are ready to purchase. And so we generally recommend sending up to 3 emails a week or more, starting in as early as September, October, getting people excited for, the sale, the Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale, or you're prepping VIP people for discounts that they might receive even before that sale. I think that if you're a direct to consumer brand or a hospitality brand and you're sending, if you have a 20,000 person email list and you're only sending 1 or 2 emails a month, there's a lot of room for growth there. There's a lot of opportunity to kind of flesh out what your content strategy is and think about other things that might be interesting for your customers other than just launches or drops or sales or, some sort of seasonality or press or a new website launch or whatever your current email strategy is. So we put a lot of time and effort into thinking about what the content strategy piece is of email marketing and developing really the correct cadence for how quickly those emails should go out. Next question. How do I find interesting things to talk about in emails and ads? And I think that goes back to maybe my answer for the last question. I think that a lot of storytelling aspect in emails and ads and advertising in general comes back to your content strategy. Let's say you're a cake business. You sell cakes online. There's definitely a seasonality there, right? There's kind of some key buying moments, holidays, birthdays. That's kind of when people are thinking about buying cakes. So what can you do outside of those key moments to make it interesting to a general customer? I think we think a lot about, okay, how are these cakes made, right? What's the founder story here? Let's get into the heritage of the brand if there's a heritage piece. Let's get into maybe even some pop culture references, right? What can we do to kind of tie in, let's see, Taylor Swift was eating a cake. What can we do to tie that into the ads or the email marketing piece that might be like culturally relevant so it stays top of mind and feels of the times, but developing these content pillars that kind of live and breathe throughout what you're doing on paid social, what you're doing on email, what you're doing on your organic social, even just what you're talking about on your website. Really important to just think of what makes you unique and not just copy what other brands or competitors are doing. Dig deep into kind of the essence of how do you make this product? What makes it different from the other? What is it about this customer testimonial, for example, this review that you got that like really resonates? How can we pull that out and create like an entire campaign around this customer review? We do that a lot. If we think about birthdays for a cake company, it's like there's so many ways that you can spin a birthday idea and create emails and ads around that and stay top of mind for people because everyone has a birthday, and everyone is always gift giving and looking for gift giving. So for us, there's a level of you don't want to be overly salesy when you talk about this stuff, but you also have to remember that your business is kind of, it needs to survive by people buying products. How can we make that interesting and fun? And the thing that I always come back to and always tell founders and business owners or marketers is what resonates with you when you buy something online, right? What are you clicking into? What is that thing that kind of stood out about that Patagonia ad that is so kind of compelling to yourself, and apply that to your business? Next question. Are ads even worth it? It's very competitive right now to run ads, like I said, if you are a new business just getting started. But I think that so long as you have the right marketing mix, which to me is PR, having really great PR, having really great content. So content for us is video, people talking about the brand, UGC, if you have those components in place and you have kind of a healthy online store already or a healthy hotel already that's doing great, but you're just looking for more bookings, I think ads are the natural next step to start running for your business. I think that I dissuade people a lot of times because they want to launch a brand with solely just ads, or they maybe have a small PR component, or they've got great content and they think that just running ads is going to be the silver bullet that saves them. And I think that ads are just a supplemental thing that gets included into the overall marketing sphere. And for us, it's really important, and the businesses that truly thrive are the ones that are kind of able to do it on their own without running ads at all. The ads just fuel the fire. So that's really, it's not something that I think you can just start a brand, have great branding, have a great website, turn on the ads and the sales are coming. These days, I think that there's much more to it, and the ads just kind of, they get it going. The next question is, what platforms are most relevant right now? For us, it's still Meta and Google. Those are generally tend to be the ones that convert the highest in terms of return on ad spend. It's usually where we recommend that people place their biggest investment. But we've also seen that TikTok can really build up brand awareness. We don't see a lot of purchases coming directly from TikTok, even for the brands that we've run who have huge TikTok followings already. But we see that the awareness piece that drives bleeds into everything else. Now, it could be an attribution issue for TikTok. It could be a little bit of just everyone like Meta and Google getting a little piece of that attribution. If they are in that lower part of the funnel where they're ready to make a purchase, get on the Google shopping page. Have a really strong, sound Google ad strategy, because we see that is going to be one of the highest places that people convert when they're trying to make that purchase decision. Last question is, I have nobody on my marketing team, but need to start hiring people. Between full-time employees, freelancers, and agencies, how should I start thinking about building a team? I think that for us, when we look at successful small businesses, we see that they have a very involved founder who has hired a very smart jack of all trades operations person who has a very strong fundamental marketing sense. They aren't necessarily the marketing director, but they understand finance, they understand social, they understand e-commerce, and they can tie all these things together. So I think that the first thing that you should consider if you're a founder when you hire someone is to find that right-hand person, that person who you can sell on your brand, that is going to be as invested as you are into solving a lot of problems. I think that you can outsource a lot of this stuff to start. And I think as you scale, you can think about bringing full-time employees in. But the first thing, if I was starting a business, would be to find someone who could be as invested as I am. Even if they need equity or something like that, I think that it's better to do this in a partnership setting. When you're starting this, to have someone who can almost act as a soundboard, who can solve problems differently than you, and who can come up with unique ways of doing things and approach things differently than how you approach things. Once you get that, then you can kind of develop the team around I think it's always important to find smart young people. They don't need to have a ton of experience, but they need to be they need to know social. They need to kind of understand things. We always talk about at Cobble Hill, people who get it and people who don't. It's just kind of one of our principles for how we decide to hire people is, does that person get it? And you either get it or you don't, and if you don't get it right now, you don't get it, right? Like there are people that just get it. So that's all the questions that I have for you today. I hope those were helpful, those responses. It's great to just have all the feedback that we've been getting from the podcast. It's really been exciting to kind of connect with people who I haven't connected with in a while and meet new people through the podcast. That's really what I've been trying to do when I created it. One of my favorite things is just to talk to people. And that is what I love most about running Cobble Hill. And that's what keeps me inspired, is the fact that I get to talk to new people every day. And I think the podcast has been a great opportunity for me to do that. And I have some really great guests coming up that I think are going to be very exciting. I really hope you guys tune in for more. And I hope to continue to do these episodes more where I can kind of answer questions. So feel free to send me questions. Until then, thank you so much for the support, and I will check in with you guys soon.